Evening all. Just thought I'd put that in the background while we're waiting for some people. Raise a cup to the royal family. Oh, that's so sweet. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we today? Who do we have on? Anyone want to say hi? That is one long wedding train. All right. Okay, so I started this Oliva Serie V and Melanio earlier on. One of the best constructed cigars I've smoked in a while. As soon as we get some focus. There we go. Look at that. Look at the stepping on that stacking. Pretty awesome. Really very fine. Nice white ash. But it went out a long time ago, so when I want to relight it, I'm going to have to ash it. Which is a shame, because that would have gone a long way. Before I do that, I'm probably going to have a pipe. I haven't decided what I want to smoke yet. I'm going to smoke the Pipe Club of London Meerschaum. I guess it's a bit early for the people in America. What is it? 10 past 7, I guess. Hi Phil, how you doing? I've been enjoying this HH Mature Virginia from 2010. It's got a really fruity taste, multi-fruity taste. I'm not sure if this stuff is still available or it's called something else nowadays. Not sure, but it's I've only got one tin, so I'm trying to decide what to smoke. What are you guys smoking at the moment? Hi TH. I haven't actually had this in a while. Dunhill Dark Flake. I might give that a bit of a go. Let's have a whiff, see what it smells like. Ah, yeah, the cigar, cool. Huh. Look at that, I've got one flake left. Cool, it's been a while since I've opened this tin. It has been a while. Well, there you go, that's that gone. Well, there's only one flake. I think I've got another one somewhere in my cellar, I'm not sure. But, good enough for a short smoke. But I've not smoked it in the meerschaum yet. The meerschaum has pretty much been McClelland's only so far. I think in the Pipe Club of London meerschaum. So any of you guys been interested at all in the royal wedding, or not your bag? Good evening, Chad. All good Christian men should be in bed by this time. Absolutely right, I agree with you. Good job I'm not Christian then, isn't it? A curious thing for you to say then, in that case. Okay, so we're going to go with a little bit of dark flake. Wedding not your thing, fair enough. Well, I haven't watched it so far. I've only just started watching it in the last 10-15 minutes. And I'm just skipping through. The BBC has got 4 hours of it available to see. And I'm just jumping through. I have to admit, when Charles and Diana got married, it was pretty dreamy. I was a younger man then in those days, obviously. What was it? It must be, was it over 30 years ago now? Ridiculous how time flies. Time just absolutely flies. I remember when she passed away, when they had that crash. I was on vacation at the time. And it happened during the night. And I remember, because a lot of the time I sleep with an earphone in my ear and I listen to whatever it might be, talk radio or whatever, some comedy. And it's amazing how many times during your waking hours you get this feeling of deja vu and realize that it's probably something that you've heard whilst you're sleeping. Your brain has heard whilst you're sleeping and subliminally set aside in its memory. And then something is familiar and you just don't know why. Hi, Tree. And that's a lot of the time, because for years and years I've been having an earpiece in my ear when I go to sleep. Literally for years. Probably, what are we now? Probably for 35 years. Almost every night. So that's a lot of information. And a lot of information which you acquire and you don't even realize that you're acquiring it. It's just, it all goes back into your hard drive, and it doesn't get brought into your RAM, if you like, until, could be sometimes years later, when it actually comes into your forefront of your memory, and it's something familiar and you just don't know where you acquired that knowledge. And I'm sure a lot of it comes from the earpiece in my ear. I'm convinced of that, really. Well, earlier this evening, I super glued this. Look at that. Not very well, but I just super glued it enough so it doesn't fall apart on me, because I've decided to use this for just to hold tampers or possibly a pipe or two, to just use it as some kind of receptacle. So hopefully it won't fall apart. I used to do it with music, but I don't know, I just tended to prefer information. And it hasn't done me a disservice, so I'm happy with that, so I've continued doing it. Yeah, the brain is a powerful tool, there's no doubting that. Right, well, let's see what Dunhill Dark Flake tastes like in a mishram. Haven't had that before. Bit of an unfortunate news with the Amarelli pipe that I got from Israel. Turns out that there's a crack in the shank. I'll show you that in a sec. I really could have done with drying it out a bit. It's not really wanting to light too readily. TH, about your question about charring light. It just takes practice. Ideally, you want to light it in a circular motion. Try and light as much of the surface as possible. So you do get the false light, and then when it goes out you tap it down and relight it. Sometimes you might have to do it a few times, but definitely you want to try and just do that kind of thing. Try and draw in as your lighter is there, and you'll see the flame jump down to the thing, and depending on how much tobacco you've got in your bowl, when enough heat gets to it, you'll see the tobacco rise from the heat and expand. Just keep doing that for a while till your room is fully enveloped in smoke. But no, you'll know when you need to stop. Take a few draws and then let it go out. It will go out quite quickly. Tamp it down and relight. And if the tobacco is in the right condition, then you'll be good to go. After, you might need to relight it once or twice. You might need to relight it during the course of the smoke as well. Yeah, absolutely, why not? Now, ideally, you want to try and get the surface of your tobacco lit, and then once you've got a little bit of an ash layer, when you let it go out, you'll end up with, when you tamp the tobacco, you will be compressing the spent tobacco, the burnt tobacco, and as you do that, you'll be creating a protective layer which won't burn anymore because it's just carbon. It won't be combustible anymore because it's already been burnt. But what that does is it creates a protective layer beneath it which will keep it light. It'll help to insulate the cherry on top, if you like, and keep it lit. Sometimes it just takes practice, you know, and you'll get there. It's not terribly complicated. There's plenty of videos on YouTube that will give you lots of instructional information about lighting your pipe. Good evening, Will. How are you doing? Smoking some Dunhill Dark Flake in the club pipe. Discovered there's just one flake in there, so quick smoke. I did, TH. I was asked by a gentleman called Boris. Don't remember the rest of his username. It wasn't Karloff. And I did say I would do it. But when I started recording videos, I just felt completely stupid. I felt a bit of a fraud, to be honest. So I stopped doing it. I really did not feel I was offering anything at all of value. There are so many far better videos out there. If you're not subscribed to Chad, what's his name? The guy with the moustache. You could do stuff and things, yeah. Chad, you know the other guy with the big English gentleman style moustache. Mutton Chop Piper, thank you. TH, just check out Mutton Chop Piper. I just had a brain freeze moment, as I do. If you want somebody who's going to patiently break down the processes into minutiae, he's your man. I must be honest, after a while it became too detailed for me and slow, but you can't find a better guy to instruct you on starting up pipe smoking. Yeah, check out the spelling, because he doesn't fully spell out Mutton Chop Piper. It's abbreviated, but if you search it, I'm sure it'll come up. Alright, so I was going to show you that Amarelli pipe. So this was the pipe that Happy Go Lucky Piper arranged for me. There were two left which we bought, and he took delivery and sent it over to me. This is number 21 of 70. It's a lovely looking pipe, very nice mixture of smooth and rusticated. Haven't smoked it yet. Amarelli, it's got the little gold line on it. But unfortunately, I don't know if you can see it, but right there's a crack on the shank. Now, generally speaking, I'm not terribly fussed about minor flaws on pipes. So you got there a little flooring thing, but that's a natural flaw, and I'm not fussed about those things. But a crack in the shank, especially with a 9mm, the problem with that is that because it's a 9mm, so the hole is much bigger, and there is a real potential of that cracking and splitting. You can see that it's gone right through, and I figured that was a fair and reasonable issue. I've only just noticed now that it's actually going up that way as well. Anyway, I sent an email to them already, and they were very happy to accept it returned, and they said they'll replace it, so I'm delighted. Tree, did you watch the royal wedding, or not your bag either? Hey Joe. I was very fortunate, Chad. I have happy-go-lucky Piper Izzy to thank for that, because he did the homework. I'd only just joined the group. It's an Israeli pipe group, which Izzy had spoken about on his channel, and he did a video of it. And in the video, if you've seen it, they distribute these pipes, which presumably were ordered probably 6 months before that or something like that. Cheers, TH. So I guess that they must have, either people made orders and decided they didn't want them in the end, which you do get that from time to time. And we were very, very lucky to get the last two, and I was even more fortunate to get a 9mm version. Hey, Pipes and Spirits. I had a little interaction with Matches last week. He and Sergeant Savinelli. They were smoking some really old half and half. And amongst the aged tins that I've got a large tin of half and half. And so I was trying to get some idea of its age. So I sent him, so I did a little video. Which is, I think it should still be on the channel, this tin. And he couldn't really date it, but he said it was obviously old, but he couldn't really date it. But then Ben, no, Codger, he reckoned it's around, I think he said it was around the 50s or the 60s or even the 70s, I can't remember what he said, I'll have to look back at the comments. So I was trying to really consider when I would open this. And I think what I'm going to do is, I'm still hoping very, very much to go to the UK Pipe Show. Oh no, my cigars, looks like it's on its ash. It's ashing. I must have knocked it. Anyway. Small things, please, little minds. So I think I'm going to save it till then. And perhaps we'll open it at the show and let everybody have a taster. But I could actually take a little baggie home with them because so much of it there, and I'm not really a big burly fan. Once it's open, if any of you guys want some, I'll be happy to send some. Oh, cool. How was it? Are you familiar with Half and Half? Is it something that you smoke regularly in the current version that you could make a comparison, Chad? Well, the keg of Half and Half, which you've probably seen before, this one is from pre-1973, because it has a limited offer card, which I'm not sure where it is now. I don't know what I've done with it. There was a little card which was inside the keg, which I have set it aside so I don't lose it. But it said on it, offer only open till a certain date in 1973 or 75, something like that. So it's definitely pre that date. And I would have thought this is older, to be honest. So what have you guys been up to? Anyone got any, been doing anything interesting over the weekend? Well, I've actually smoked more aged pipe tobacco than aged cigars. I think the oldest cigar that I've had probably is probably no more than 10-15 years. Any luck, Tree? Oh, good. What did you get? Any Tabacchiana? I didn't notice a video. Hey Josh, how you doing? Pipes and spirits. I have been seeing your very regular posts about temperature, and I have to be honest that I haven't had a chance to get through them yet. No, I've got to say that this meerschaum is getting really hot. I'm not even puffing on it like it's rain or anything. I haven't looked through those videos, but is there a conclusion that you arrive at after having done all those videos? Or is it just observations? Is that a meerschaum you're talking about, Chad? Ah. Well, what I've noticed with briar pipes is that I generally find that rusticated pipes fare a lot better than smooth pipes when it comes to overheating the bowl. And I think that the rustication has a radiator effect. That's what I've found on a lot of my rusticated pipes, and it helps dissipate the heat. Whereas smooth pipes, your smooth surface means that the heat is distributing directly to the surface. "100 degrees, wow." Well, kudos to the briar. It seems to be taking quite a beating at 100 degrees. I think most of us probably smoke more than a puff per 5 seconds. Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry, I'm old money. Pounds and inches for me. None of this kilo and centimeters. I still can't get around when people talk about how much they weigh in kilos. I mean, I'm a stones man. Yes, I'm afraid I still am working with a temporary cup. My other cup I've just super glued tonight to stop it falling apart, so I can use it to store stuff, maybe pipes or tampers. I'm still on the hunt for a suitable replacement. Yes, really, I like the way we talk so fondly about a epoxy ceramic cup. But I did really have a soft spot for it. I did really get quite perturbed when it gave up the ghost. I dare say I could give it into some pottery expert and get it fixed up, but I probably only paid a couple of quid for it. Tree, we're showing our age, I think. Are you serious? Wow. Can't believe it. That's so generous of you. I hope they make it in one piece. That is awesome. I can't believe that. Very kind of you. Thank you. I look forward to that. That is so cool. Made my week now. Quite right, Tree. Very topical. Yeah, absolutely. Well, today, as we reach different times of the day. My daughter and I and my wife who were saying, well, this time next week we'll be doing this, or this time next week we'll be doing that. This next Monday is my daughter's wedding day, so less than a week to go now. I can see a definite change in demeanour of my daughter. She's definitely getting nervous. Are you asking, were we impacted by the royal wedding in terms of a date? Oh, no. We just couldn't book the hall at Windsor, that's all. In terms of tobaccos, I seem to have been seasonal because I haven't smoked any Latakia blends for a long while. I've had the odd bowl of Northwoods, but really very, very rarely in the last few months. But I'm really still in an evolutionary stage. I seem to be, although last year I think I'd gone a full year with a fairly static rotation. And it's only this year that I've moved on to Virginia blends. So, I was going to ask you, Tree, how you like that Northwoods? It's a cracking blend. I don't know, some people seem to rate it as a full-bodied blend. I don't rate it as full. I rate it as around a medium, maybe a medium plus. But it's got so much going for it. I think there's a little bit of sweetener in there, to be honest. There may be some vanilla in there. Tree, you got to be smoking like a train. You must have a pipe perpetually dangling from your lips. I just find the Northwoods to be a very good all-rounder. It very rarely disappoints. What? Are you serious? This I have to check. It is Cambridge, I know that. And it says on the bottom of it, Cambridge. Well, I'm doing a quick search, I haven't found it yet. They've got plenty similar shaped mugs. Not that design. You saw that design as well? Oh, that's a very similar one. It's not showing up on the UK ones, on UK Amazon. No. No, I can't find it. I don't smoke as much as that, I don't think. Even though my social media output might belie that, but on average, although recently I've been smoking more pipes than cigars, I would say 2 or 3 half bowls a day. I generally only fill half bowls. So 2 or 3 half bowls and perhaps a cigar, sometimes 2 cigars. And I also rarely have bowls back to back. My coffee blend is very basic. It's nothing fancy at all. It's a freeze-dried Nescafe Gold blend. It's just the way it's made that really makes it enjoyable. Sorry for the silences, I'm just searching that mug. Well, I'm up to page 9. And I can't find that particular design. But there are plenty of similar shaped mugs. No. Pipes and beans. If you've got a reference number, I mean, I searched that number you put on before, but I didn't come up with anything. Chad, my pending son-in-law. Well, in my circles, we kind of have a blend of not quite an arranged marriage, but it falls somewhere in between. So my daughter definitely courted for a while, but it's still quite traditional. So I can't say that she absolutely knows him. We certainly don't know him as much as we'd like to. But it's a traditional thing, and of course it's a huge commitment. It's a lifetime commitment. But in the belief that we have is that people, I don't know if this interests you or not. If it doesn't, just tell me and I'll be quiet. But I'm sure it would probably be quite fascinating for people who are not used to that kind of thing. But what we believe in our circles is that many relationships, especially in this day and age, they don't last. They don't go the distance because, look, I'm not trying to say that any one system is better than the other. I'm just trying to explain how each system can work. Whereas some people might consider one to be very narrow-minded and even unkind. I just want to give it a little bit of context, and just to, it's going to be really difficult for me to put it in a nutshell in a sort of off-the-cuff conversation, non-face-to-face on YouTube, but I'll try. The concept is that we believe, in tradition has it, in Jewish tradition, that people are partnered before they're born. So our tradition is that 40 days before the creation of an embryo, in other words, from conception plus 40 days, there is a tradition that this soul is committed to that soul. So two people are, it's destiny. If you watch Yentl, the film, it's the Bashet, which means two people are destined for each other. Now, you might ask, well, how is it then that people get divorced? If they get married and then they split up and get divorced, how is that possible? So, in anything religious, certainly in the Jewish religion, we strongly believe in choice, freedom of choice. So whilst I'm starting to get a little bit hesitant now, because I've always said that I didn't really want to make this a religious discussion channel or politics, but that's really been in my videos rather than we have had religious discussions before on the live videos, so I'll continue. But if it gets a little bit convoluted and it doesn't come across well, I might stop. But basically, without getting too deep, freedom of choice is also predestined. So if you believe in God, then although we have freedom of choice, God knows the outcome of your freedom of choice. So it gets a little bit difficult sometimes to understand it all. And I suppose faith, to a large degree, is exactly that. It's faith. So you don't always have the answers, but you continue based on your faith. So when it comes to people partnering, so we have a belief, we have a tradition that 40 days before the formation of an embryo, there is a celestial announcement, if you like, and that announcement says that this person is going to get married to that person. Now, as I was saying before, if somebody gets divorced, well, what happened there? And that's where I got into the freedom of choice. So sometimes somebody might marry a person, but that actually wasn't their destined partner, and therefore they'll get divorced, and maybe they'll get married again, and perhaps then they'll find their destined partner. On the other hand, somebody might get married. And that's okay, don't worry, all lands aren't, not a problem. It was absolutely fine. So somebody might get married, and they get married to their destined partner and still get divorced, and they will have confounded their destiny. And that's all part of freedom of choice. And that's a separate topic, really. But in terms of high five dreams, in terms of how people get together in religious circles in the Jewish religion, in Orthodox religious circles, it varies to a great degree. So you could have people who will date like anybody else, and they might go out for 6 months, get to know each other, and decide to get married. In very religious circles, that wouldn't really generally be approved, because premarital relations is absolutely forbidden if you're observant. Not everybody is observant, and that's fine. So they have no problem going out and dating and having a physical relationship. But in Orthodox religious circles, of which I'm a part, premarital relations is forbidden, and therefore, if you were to be going out for an extended period of time, that would be sometimes, especially if you fall in love, it would be extremely hard to curtail any such activity. So, therefore, there is a system of, it's not quite as restrictive as perhaps in the Muslim religion or in the Indian religion or Hindu, that kind of thing, where you have absolutely arranged marriages, where sometimes it gets quite extreme, where the children have no choice. That is definitely not the case in our circles. In our circles, in my daughter's case, there are marriage, what's the word? People who introduce people to each other. Matchmaker, that's the one. So there are certainly matchmakers in the Jewish, in your circles, and in our case, a particular matchmaker who happens to know our family very, very well, and is related to some of our relatives, although not directly to us, they made the suggestion, and then it's down to us to make inquiries as deep as you like into the families, and they will do the same about our family. And before the young couple get to meet, you iron out any background issues that there may be. So one of the things which people will inquire about is, especially if the young couple are, say, studying, and they don't yet have a real source of income, because in the Jewish religion, in the Orthodox Jewish religion, couples tend to get married quite young. So they wouldn't necessarily have an income, they wouldn't necessarily have a career, a proper sort of set career. They may be just starting in their careers, but not necessarily a proper solid income. So one of the things that they have to do, sort of has to be discussed, is financial security. So whereas if a young couple were to go out and fall in love and get married and then find actually they're going to struggle financially, that could have a huge disastrous effect on their relationship. Physical aspects, if a young couple they fall in love and they embark on a very tempestuous, lustful relationship, that kind of burns out after a while. Anybody who's been in a long-term relationship knows that the physical side of things finds its level after a while. Sometimes very quickly, sometimes after a longer interval, but certainly the initial heat of a relationship certainly does not last forever. So we believe in our tradition that that if all of the physical aspects are set aside initially, but because there's no falling in love stage as such, therefore it makes sense to iron everything else out. In other words, to give the young couple the best possible chance that any distractions or any things which could harm a relationship in the future are ironed out as best as possible before they actually go out. Once they go out, then it's up to them. So certainly in my circles, that's how it works. So then they go out, and my daughter will go out with them as many times as she feels she wants to go out, and ultimately the decision will be hers. Once they get to that stage, it's there, then out of our hands, and we leave it entirely up to the young couple. But the advantage of that system is that when they embark on their relationship, they then, in other words, when they get married, because they have no physical relationship at all before the marriage, so certainly the journey that they will go on will be building that relationship not based on lust, but based on a relationship which they build together from scratch. And when they start their life together, it will be based on really where they focus on each other and just build the relationship from there without having the challenges that many young couples do get presented with, because many of those will have been ironed out before they even got to know each other. That's roughly the type of system that we have in our circles. It's not 100%. There's many cases where people don't last and their marriages fall asunder. But the Jewish Orthodox community has a pretty good record of very low divorce rates, and it's definitely to some extent because of that. Because the relationship is not based on physicality. It doesn't start that way. And therefore, if somebody goes into a relationship based on that, and then they find that once that physical aspect has waned, then they start to really focus on each other, and only then do they start to see, well, I don't like that about him, or I don't like that about her, and that kind of starts to grate on you, because love is blind, and once that love or the lust starts to fall away, then your eyes start to focus again, and then you start to hone in on things which you might not like. And that's the theory. It's not to say that relationships which start through love and through lust can't last. Of course they can, but it's just how we do it, and it seems to work for the most part. But the key thing to understand is that there is no coercion whatsoever. Certainly there's nerves. I've noticed in the last few days that my daughter has certainly gone a lot quieter, and she's definitely getting nervous. I mean, don't forget, she's going to be embarking on a life, please God, all her life, with somebody who she doesn't really know that well. I mean, they went out, they had fun, and they spent a few days going out, sightseeing and that kind of thing, and spent some time with each other. And the concept is that what I advised my daughter when she went out is, because when you got to the stage where you got to a stage where she felt that she needed to make a decision, she asked me, on what basis am I making a decision? I don't know it, really, very much. And I said to her, one of the criteria should be, is there something that you don't like? Because as long as there's nothing glaring which really puts you off, you will build your relationship with them, and it doesn't really, I would say it doesn't matter, but I would say that it's not so important. As long as there's nothing there which is glaringly obvious, he hasn't got a mole on the end of his nose which you're not going to be happy waking up to each morning, that kind of thing, or he hasn't got a character trait which has surfaced in the times that you've gone out which you really don't like. The rest of it, you kind of have to some extent, you trust your parents that we've done our research, and we've done as much sort of research as possible, so that you're not going to come up with an abusive, bad character. And then the rest of it is up to you. You build your relationship. You invest in each other, you commit to each other, and you build your relationship from there. So that's in a nutshell. I hope it came across okay, but that's in a nutshell how it works in our circles. And as much as we have got to know him in the short while that since they've been engaged, he certainly comes across as a really sweet kid. So we're really hopeful. And there's a lot of faith in there as well, because at the end of the day, you're giving your daughter away to somebody that you don't know. So you hope and pray that, all things will work out fine. And for the most part, you see, I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this video up because it gets a little bit personal. I might not let it stay up, but my oldest son is married. He's been married for a few years. He's given us a granddaughter. Very sweet kid. But we went through the same process, and we went through all the inquiry process and all of that. And there were one or two things which niggled. And we made our inquiries, and we were reassured that they weren't an issue. And that's one thing which you do have to be careful, because people don't always give you the truth, and sometimes that does come to the fore afterwards. But once they're married, it's down to them to make a go of it and make it work, and that generally works. That's pretty amazing, Chad. How did you get introduced in the first place? What made you start writing? Had you actually seen each other? Were you school friends, or how did the first letter come about? courtesy of Pipes and Spirits. Look at that. The power of the internet. Well, let's see if I can order it. Out of stock. Alright, well, we'll have to see if they can get it in stock. Thank you very much for that, Pipes and Spirits. myhighhome.com. Well, so far everywhere, there's loads of them online, but they're always out of stock. Got quite a few of them there. Well, it looks like a fairly regular thing, so hopefully we'll get one eventually. Sorry, let me get back to the messages. That's pretty cool, Chad. That must have been quite a long shot in the early days of the internet. Did you exchange pictures or anything like that? See, that actually reinforces what I was saying, Chad, because you had really got so much under your belt before anything physical took place, and you really, your feelings probably got quite deep, and your interest in each other probably, sorry, I don't mean to make any assumptions here, but to go for 10 years communicating with somebody, that's quite amazing. That is amazing. So when you first met, I mean, that must have been such a highly charged event, and you guys knew each other. I mean, obviously as much as you were willing to share with each other prior to that. Wow. Just thinking about it is mind-blowing. 10 years. How often did you write? See, something like that, when you've been communicating for so long, you compare that to kids today, and I don't want to sound like an old fogey here, but kids today, they go out, decide to get married on a whim, and then, I don't know, somebody burns the toast and says, no, I'm not having this, and they're off. It's so throwaway compared to when there's something meaningful going on, where it's just not about physicality, it's about deeper emotion, it's about a deeper connection of spirits, where clearly, if you've been communicating over 10 years, there had to have been a really deep connection, an understanding, an affinity with each other, a connection which kept that going for so long. Which meant that even if there was a challenge during the relationship, which every relationship has, it's not a game-ending situation, because the relationship is far deeper than any one particular scenario. That's one of the things that I try to teach my children, is that, in life you're always going to have arguments, you're always going to have disagreements, and disagreements do not have to be an end game situation. You disagree on this particular topic, but if you have your whole persona, let's say, is 100%, and this particular argument amounts to 1%, so you've got 99% of a relationship which is still there. You just have to always teach yourself not to let that 1% outweigh 99%. It's so illogical. And that's something which I always try to teach my children, is that sometimes, especially teenagers, you're always having an argy-bargy every so often. And I'm just really try to focus on making sure that afterward there's been a disagreement or a heated exchange, is just straight away get onto a positive discussion. And as if that's done now, that's history, carry on. In other words, that's just part of who we are, but not an end gamer. And that's a tough one for children nowadays. Everything is so now, so immediate. It's very hard for them to transcend that and treat relationships differently. That's the problem nowadays. If I get an iPhone and it breaks, I want to go to the Apple shop and expect to get a replacement there and then. My relationship breaks down, you can't expect the same thing. Well, I think nowadays that in itself is an achievement. To get a teenager to be willing to do that. There is a huge generational gap when it comes to children and respecting other people, respecting elders. That's a notion which really hardly exists nowadays. Funnily enough, we had our neighbour's kids over today. All the kids were playing very nicely, and it came to supper time. So, as you do with neighbours, kids in and out, we must have had about 8 kids in the house. And it was supper time, so my wife gave everybody supper. And they'd all been playing outside on a trampoline and in the garden. So I said to one of the little boys, he's, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years old, a little kid, and I said, have you washed your hands with soap? Because they were all, playing outside before they eat. So he said, yes. Did you? I said, did I what? He said, did you wash your hands? And it's an innocent enough remark, but it just, kind of brought home to me that kids are more, they consider you more a pal, another friend from the street. they don't see adults as people to be respected. And I might come across as old-fashioned when I say that, and the political correct brigade might say, well, you should treat yourself as a friend rather than this old ogre. But I think that's wrong. I think that society has broken down so much, and unless you're going to put another structure in there, then traditional structures are the best. I've not heard of this guy, Dr. Henry Abramson, but I think every religion has extremely interesting histories and biographies. Hey Bill, how you doing? Thank you for joining. Where are you based, sir? Which part of the world? Cool. Well, you might come across Ben, Unicorn Piper. He's out in Canada. But Canada's vast, so you may be further away from him than I am to you. I have relatives in Canada. You too, Chad. Thank you very much for your chat. Are you a pipe smoker, Bill? You cigar smoker. Cool. Well, this evening I'm smoking a Oliva Serie V Melanio. Very tasty smoke. Josh. So what cigars have you had that you've enjoyed so far, Bill? Josh, be warm and welcoming. Play nice. Don't be such a grump. Monte Cristo number 4. Oh, I see you're in Canada, so you can get them, can't you? That's a very good cigar. What do you think of it so far? It's quite a robust smoke for a first-time smoker. How that happens. How are you finding it? How are you finding the nicotine? Cheers, Bill. Old Lang Syne, have a great one. I've probably asked you this before. Are you in America as well? As Joshua will testify, my memory is not good. Glasgow. Cool. Well, we're not that far apart, but the likelihood of me getting up to Glasgow is about as likely as me getting over to Ontario, Canada. So, oh, cheers. I'm just looking at an email from Pipes. Thank you very much. I'll do a bit of research on that. Yeah, apparently that they've got slight differences on the tin art, and that's how the Artful Codger kind of was dating it. So that 1950s does make sense. If I just have a look at his comment on my video. Where was that video? Oh, I think I might have commented on. Oh, there it is. Right, the Artful Codger wrote on that video, "Hey Simon, best guess is the 1940s to 50s, there you go. It's still made by American, but no longer shows the name Lucky Strike and Buckingham cut plug. Hope that helps. I'll have to narrow it down further without a better look." Well, there you go. So yeah, 1940s, 50s. Which is pretty awesome, nearly 70 years old. I think I will keep it to... yeah, I saw the email, thank you. It would be nice to open that with some friends, so I'll do my best to keep it till the show. I really hope to get to it. The nearest description I've got of Glasgow is in the comedy sketches of Billy Connolly, so I don't know if that's good or bad. I think the likelihood of matches coming to London is the same likelihood of me getting over there. But never say never, because Razvan, he's one of my viewers, and he told me he was coming to London, and we got to meet. We met in Dunhills, and we shared a couple of cigars. It was very pleasant. So one should never say never, I guess. Hello, Mr. Miller. Yeah, Matches goes to London. A match made in heaven. Speaking of matchmaking. Yeah, he did say that. I did ask him that. Yeah, it would be cool to see him. Nice to see a YTPCer from across the pond. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to say goodnight. I've got work to go to in the morning, so I haven't got the luxury that Tree's got of being an insomniac. Sorry, Tree. Yeah, looking forward to that video, Tree, if you get to do one of your finds, your most recent finds. So, you just got here, Jason. Well, you should have said hello a bit sooner, shouldn't you? We've been on for an hour and a half now, and it was really just to say hello, but we ended up getting into some pretty deep discussions. And my cigars turned a little bit sour. Well, we can stay on for a few more minutes. So what's your, what are you getting up to, Jason? And A. Miller, you want to share your first name, Mr. Miller? Alex, hi. So what are you guys smoking this evening? What kind of blend is that, Alex? I've just had a great idea. I've been talking about doing my giveaway, my 2,000 subscriber giveaway, and I've been racking my brain on what to do as the giveaway theme. And I think I've just got to it, which is, how did you get together with your partner? I think that's a cool idea. What do we say? Sounds like an interesting blend. I'm not a big Burley fan. But with that rum and molasses, sounds like it will taste a bit like a Navy flake kind of idea. Well, I'm starting to get into Cornell and Diehl with the demise of McClelland. I've been just every so often buying a tin of this and a tin of that. And the tin which I'm going through at the moment is, I've mentioned it several times, is First Responders, which is a vapor. Yeah, so that First Responders, I would agree with you entirely on that. And that is something which I'm probably going to get a few to cellar, because much like a cigar, cigars definitely need to age, especially Cuban cigars. But if you smoke a fresh Cuban cigar, you can often visualize what it will be like with some age. And that's one of the things which I would say with First Responders. It's a very smooth. It's got rough edges because it's new, because it's fresh, but it has the potential to be extremely smooth, sweet, and really enjoyable blend. Really easygoing anytime kind of smoke. But it just needs to have a little bit of time to sort of smooth out those edges. So I fully agree with you there, Alex. In terms of a cigar blend, no, not really. I wasn't really looking for a cigar blend as such. What I was looking for was the satisfaction, the depth of and breadth of flavour which a cigar gives. Not necessarily the cigar flavour, but just, and I did find it to some extent in Hitavian. I did find that to some extent in the McClelland blends, of all of them so far, 40th anniversary. I just found that many times after a hard day's work, sometimes I needed to just wind down, and I needed something to give me that real depth, deep satisfaction, and a pipe just didn't give it to me. I don't know if it was the tactility of a cigar, or if it was the fullness of the flavour. I don't know what it was, but whatever I tried in a pipe, it just didn't give me that same depth of satisfaction. But since I moved over to 9mm pipes, and I've been able to explore Virginia blends, especially the McClelland ones, I have been finding a lot more satisfaction with the McClelland, the Christmas Cheers and the 40th anniversary. But as I've said many times, sadly, I've come into them right at the end of their tenure, so bad luck for me. How are you doing, Tavian? You smoking something this evening? Yeah, quite nice. Is a nice nightcap I've not really got into. I don't think I've ever tried it actually, believe it or not. Sasquatch Piper is in the house. How are you doing? Well, a lot of people say that it's quite nice, it's similar to Penzance. I didn't really see it myself. It's a nice Balkan blend, but I think that when it comes to Balkan blends, and I suppose the same is true with any blend, any type of blend, any genre of tobacco, you have to be intimately familiar with several blends across that genre to really get what they are. So if somebody just smokes some Penzance and then smokes some Quite Nights, I didn't quite Star of the East is the same. You know, if you look through my channel, you'll see a three-way shootout I did. I did a back-to-back smoke of Penzance, Star of the East, and Quiet Nights in the same video. So it made for an interesting video, but they were all different. They were all different. I mean, they're all Balkans, but they're different. And sometimes the similarities are, or the differences are quite subtle, but they're all different. Cheers, Alex. I think I might, when it gets back to the colder weather and I start to feel like Balkans again, I might just revisit that and see if my mind changes on that. Shortcut to Mushrooms Tree, yeah, I enjoy it. I think I've still got some somewhere, but it was okay. Occasionally, I didn't really. I just preferred to go for a proper Balkan. The Shortcut to Mushrooms, whatever addition it had to make it that crossover between a Balkan and an aromatic, wasn't quite working for me. But that's a very personal thing. You know, everybody has their own preferences, and I dare say if I revisit that, I may well, you know, be over the moon about it. I think when I first smoked it, I really did enjoy it, and I think I did rave about it at the time. But I think we all go through that, you know. I'd be very surprised if they got truffle oil in there, but you might be right. I don't think it has anything in there which is related to mushrooms. It's just it's a title which is presumably whoever smoked it just got the hint of mushroom in their palate. I don't believe there's anything mushroomy in there, as far as I remember when I looked into it at the time. Tavian, if it cracked just on the inside, I'm no great expert, I wouldn't pretend to be. If it cracked just on the inside, you want to just check first of all that it's not just cake that's cracked. If he's got cake on it, but if it was cake, it would assume that he's quite a seasoned smoker, which if he's asking you these kind of questions, perhaps he's not. So if it is actually cracked, then possibly there is a flaw in the briar. Yes, you're right. It does come from Lord of the Rings. Middle Earth, I think. I mean, I'm not a Lord of the Rings man, but I think there's a whole series of tobaccos which they've got in just for him. And that's Shortcut to Mushrooms is one of them. Well, I've purged through this cigar, and the flavours are a little bit better, but it's not great. I hadn't heard of them, DGP, perhaps somebody else has. Is it a metal-bodied pipe tree? With a briar bowl? All I've come up with on a quick search is dead guy pipes. Which is, he calls himself DGP. Don't know. Sorry. Okay guys, nearly 2 AM here, so I'm going to say arrivederci, auf Wiedersehen, and any other way of saying good night, but good night. Thank you very much, Tree. Cheers, Josh. Cheers, Sasquatch, Alex, Tevian, Pipes and Spirits Art, Jason. I think that's it for those who are on now. So thanks very much, and I'm sure we will be in touch again. But in the meantime, I'll say good night and catch you on the next one.